Welcome to step 14. Quick notes here before we start on it. Make sure that when you are cutting the hose lengths, which I've already pre-done here, just by measuring them out on my steel measuring, not tape measure, but ruler. There we go, my steel ruler. Make sure you're using the 1 millimeter wide tubing, which is the thicker stuff, but it's a shorter length. This is what's left after I've cut them all out. Rather than the stuff that we used earlier for all the other lines on the tire stations, which is the 0.7 millimeter stuff, which is a bit thinner. There's a lot more of it. Just make sure you're straight up aware of that. This should be a thicker tubing. Of course, I knocked that on the floor. Oops. That said, when taking out these, so the tubing represents on the truck what's actually going to be flexible tubing, hoses. These are hard lines that are actually on the truck, and I will say that I'm impressed that these were done in styrene, because they're going to do a much better job of representing what needs to be placed where. And they came out really well. So they have two connections, and then they have a punch out, I don't know, extension in there that you're supposed to clean off. There's a little bit of flash, but all of it's really thin and it's not hard to clean up. I didn't think about cleaning up one of them until after I cleaned them all up, so I apologize for that. But let's get started with this. So here's the kit right here, and we're going to be working basically in this area right here. Let me get this over. This area right here. And remember that this right here does move on purpose, but be careful not to push the front end here down too far, or else this plate right here will get screwed up, and then you've got to reconnect that and make sure you don't screw it up. So just a warning. So we've got these hoses are going from these piston lines right here, and they're going to these ports right here. So the longer one, the top one, goes from this one here to the bottom down here, and the shorter one goes from here to here. Now let's see if we can do it, because this thing is really long now. And I can't get everything on screen. And I'm going to just use super glue like I have for the others. And it seems like today I'm just going to drop everything, so be warned, be careful. Don't drop everything like I'm doing. Okay, so now that I've got that all worked out, what I need to do is not put the model on top of the hose, but I'm going to glue that down there first. And I was wrong. It's not top and bottom. The long one goes on here. And this is mobile, by the way, a little bit. But this one goes on one of the plastic nubs. There's a just underneath the cylinder right here, there is a two-prong. On the other side I'll be able to show it because it won't have this control box in front of it, so I'll do that then. And sometimes when you're doing the wire This little bit of copper will show. I'm just cutting it flat, just completely removing it. So then you can, it's much easier to glue that on when you don't have to account for the wire as well. And just let that sit for a moment or two. So, as I said, this is easier to see. You've got one thing right here, you ignore this. There's these two right here. Those are the two parts that you want to do, and again, the wiring or the tubing runs to there. And it's important to note that they have this running underneath this piston mount. So unlike other things where sometimes they hide it, this one is not hidden. And this wire, if you remember, has, well, wire in it. So you can mold this and get that to go where you want it to go. There's just an idea, but unfortunately, at the same time, it's got the wire sticking out now. And that won't work doing it that way. You gotta nip this off when you got it up here. All right, so there's that. Take some glue. Super glue on it. And I got it on there, and just to be sure that this stays glued on, just put a little tiny bit right there in the joint itself. And this one, I want to make sure that I can, this is the one, the shorter one, but it's also coming in from behind. Just to make sure, pull this out like this. Nip those wires. Put some super glue on. And attached. And again, I'm going to take a little bit of super glue and just put it on that. Yeah, that already moved a little bit, it looks like. Nope, that's on there glued. So now we've got those glued on. Now it's saying to take, and you've got these 4 spots right down in here in the neck, right here, and that's what you're attaching these hard lines to. And then when they go in, they're going to go up to these spots right here for these representations of the hard lines. So the important thing to note is that these lines are coming off the cylinder, or in front of the cylinder and around and over is the soft ones, and they have this part of this swing. That's why they need to be the way they are, so they move. The hard lines are just hard lines. And they are putting the hard lines over these wires. So And I don't know if you'll notice, but there's a bracket on the side of the hull just for these wires. And there's part of the problem right there, is things will pop off. There. So it might be better to let this stuff sit for a little while and then glue that, but I've got to get, see if I can super glue that there. I'm sorry. There we go. Trying to super glue that right into the bracket. And that will also help settle this down as well. And then I can super glue that one in. And there's already glue in there, so it goes right in. And part of it is you want those glued in, so then when you put the other hard wiring on, you don't have any problems with it fitting. So these go in the first two. Just gluing everything up. And I'm trying to keep this in focus, but I'm not used to leaning in this direction. So I've got the glue. So this is the bottom one right here. Bottom isn't really the right word, but now you'll notice there's a little bit of a J line there. It's not continuous, and okay, now you can see there's a little bit of a line here, and it's not continuous, but it's a good representation. And if it really bothers you, you could probably put like a little piece of plastic or foil on there to make it look like a connection point. And there we go. I think that looks pretty awesome considering. Now, we've got these other two lines to put on right here. These last two. And they go into here and here. So I'm gonna get the glue set up, and I'm going to do these first because this part here, as I was thinking, goes from cylinder to cylinder on the outside. So we want to do this in kind of a layered approach. So I want to do the inside, furthest inside one first, and then build on top of that. And all of this stuff goes on top of the other stuff, which goes on top of the first stuff. So it's definitely a layered setup for all of this. I'm just going to make sure you get them in the holes right. And then you might have to coerce, because this is plastic, might have to coerce this. There, it's going in. And then this one, since it's already easy to put that in there, so to speak. All right. There. I'm trying to get the last one to fit. Okay, so they're all in. And I'm going to want to put a little bit of glue on this just to make sure that this is all getting glued in well, so that we don't have things pop off like that one just did. So that looks, considering what it is, it still looks pretty fabulous. And finally we take this, and as you can see, we run it from the cylinder right here up here to the cylinder underneath. And it's going to be curved, so at this point in time I want to add the curve to it so that it's already kind of ready to go. It's already hard enough to deal with. And I can see if I've got a right amount. Yeah, that feels about right. So put it on each end. Yeah, it's going to be impossible without doing it with my forceps. I thought I could just hand put it on, but that's a bad idea. Now, one of the problems I'm having is that even with the wire even, it's a butt joint, and even though there are connectors on here and here, they're small. It's almost like you should have this hollow, like pull the wire out, cut it a little bit, push it back in. The problem with that idea is that it's almost impossible to push the wires back in after you've done that. I tried that once. So my recommendation is to just be patient and keep at it. And I'm sorry if this won't be in the video, but in the frame anyways right away, because... Okay, so part of what has become apparent is that it's supposed to be narrower because it's got to fit above the cylinder here. So for this, I would recommend getting this on the cylinder first, not trying to do both of them at the same time, like I just did. Kind of foolish of me. And it just pops off. So I'm going to do something a little rash. I'm going to nip the nub off of this, like so, and if I can, right there. So that'll take a little bit and give me a little bit more surface area to work with for the nub. So I'm putting that wire right on there to represent a hose. And I've got it on that as well. So, again, I want to make sure that this is going to stay, got enough glue, so I'm going to add a little bit of glue there. And try and add a little bit of glue just to that, yep. So then you've got your wiring on there. So that's the passenger side of the trailer, or the right side facing forward. So then we want to go over to the other side and do the exact same thing. Let's see if I've learned. So the shorter one goes on the inside. Right there. And the longer one has a wire sticking out, which I'm going to nip off. The other side's fine. And before you worry about it, I mean, even nipped, that hole is so small it's not going to match up with any of these nubs. So I think that would be a hint that you don't need the nubs to do the work. And again, I want you to see all the issues I'm having with this, so that you know what's ahead. Yeah, it is difficult, I agree, but the results are worth it. I mean, if nothing else, I'm getting much better hand-eye coordination. I am frustrated by how much this stuff likes to wiggle. There. There we go. So we'll let that rest for a minute. And you got to be careful so that these don't get busted and all that hard work we did before doesn't have any issues. Same thing with the side, you know, the photo etch on the sides. You got to be careful where you put your hands, how you do the work. But you got to let this do its thing. All right. Putting my glue on my end, like so. Trying to give you a solid shot. Now remember, we've got that there too, and that can help. The silence is deafening. We're getting there. Doesn't feel like there's any glue on that end, but I did get it attached. I just don't want it to be one of those things where you get it attached and then you find out it's not because it was glued, but because it just physically stuck there one time or something. So you just want it to stick briefly. There you go. And it's stuck in there. Good. Glue on this. And that, just to be sure. Get it on the tippy front. Stick it to it. There we go. That's done. Now we're gluing on our 4 lines like we did the other one. If you remember, except these go in different, these are shorter, different lines. They're not all the same. So make sure you're grabbing the right one. This is the lower one. Lower one is number 2 from the one side. And that hole is just a little bit too small. Might be a little flash, might be something else, who knows. Don't want to fight it. Renew the glue. Get the part back there. Alright, now that that's done, I can put on this one. Again, trying to keep this in screen, but those go on pretty well. Put a little extra glue just to make sure everything's still gluish. That'll need a little pushing in. I'm going to use a blunt object much as you can to push that in. Alright, I'm going to put some extra glue down here for those. Those are going to be hard to get in, period. R46 is the bottom. R45 is the top. This one goes on the outside. And actually, I want to do the top first. Well, too late. That's good. Yes, this is squirrely. Squirrely is the word I would use. That's in. Now I don't know why, but this one feels a little off as far as trying to lift up. But you'll notice I was able to get that in with the glue already on the spots. So that's all in. Now we just have to do like we did on the other side, and that is get this piece of wire from, yeah, I loosened up that one. I loosened up this right here. And somehow got super glue on it. So I've got to glue that back down there. Which means I no longer have a stand. Alright. So I've got to do this while elevating. Easy peasy, right? Because we already know one of the tricks. One of the tricks is to get rid of the nubs. That one, and I can't get rid of that one without damaging the wire that's already there. So I'm going to glue this one on first, just straight on. Nothing fancy. And in fact, it's on too well. Yeah, good enough. What you'll find, and it isn't really advertised, is vinyl really does like super gluing to vinyl. That makes it much easier to deal with if you've got vinyl nearby. If you don't, life becomes a little more complicated, as we've been dealing with all night. Okay, I didn't need a ring of super glue. All right, back to this. There, now I know I've got enough on there. It's glued on. Okay, so now everything's glued on. Having accelerator for your super glue could help, but everything is glued on. All of steps 14 is finished, and I've got this to keep an eye on, re-glued, but it looks like it's going back on just fine. So I'm going to invert this like so. Actually, gonna have to be careful because step 15 also deals with stuff underneath. But thank you for your step 14. I hope that helps. See you for step 15.